Hey friends, buckle up for a new episode of the Seller's Journey podcast with Uvaro CEO, Joseph Fung.
In this episode, we sat down with Lauren Baker. Coming to Uvaro with past career experience working in big banks and established institutions, see how Lauren leveraged this past experience in her current role at an exciting new startup in the cybersecurity space. This is a great episode. Hope you enjoy. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Really good. It is a bright, sunny day, and in my basement studio, I am getting slivers of light in that make it all feel real and summery. I'm super pumped today.
Well, I'm remote every day, and I'm looking out my window into the Texas heat wave, and the sky is blue, and there's not a cloud in sight.
I'm jealous. I need to move my apartment down your way. This is going to be fun. I've been looking forward to today's interview so much. You've got such a wealth of experience, and as you've moved into tech, you've had just such a rich set of experiences. I know a ton of people are going to learn so much from your story. So let me start off with a big thank you for sharing your story and your time today. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for letting me into the program at Uvaro and facilitating the whole thing, because none of it would have happened.
We're going to hear about your time at Uvaro. This is going to be a blast. But why don't we start off with kind of where you're at right now? People always want to know the company you're at, the role you have. Can you tell us what your title is and what PlexTrac does?
Yeah, so I am a sales development representative, or a BDR. They did officially change. Once we hired a chief revenue officer, we did officially change our titles from BDR to SDR, and no real reason there, but that's my official title is SDR. And I work for PlexTrac, which is a reporting software that sells into the cybersecurity market. So in the cybersecurity marketplace, there's upwards of 4,000 vendors that are selling different types of, data producing agents. And the teams that use all of those tools need a way to consolidate all of the data and convert it into actionable insights, and then present it to their boards and their stakeholders. So they need, and currently we've got Fortune 500 companies and just mega companies who are doing all of this, and they're still using Word and Excel in order to do it. And they are very passionate about the work that they're doing and the problems that they're solving, and in some cases, the crisis that they're managing. And reporting is the bane to their existence. They cannot stand this side of the job. And the CEO of my company, his name is Dan DeClass, he used to work in one of those roles. And he started building this from scratch on his own and realized I could sell this. And, linked up with a Series A and now a Series B, and got a roadmap and starting to integrate with everything out there on the market, and have a big plans.
I love how you described that, your role of the company. You've got all the tech startup jargon in there. It's like you've been there for ages. And I know you've had some interesting times in your journey at PlexTrac, and we're going to get to that. But let's rewind the clock first. Let's start. You've had a rich career even before joining Uvaro and PlexTrac. So for our audience, can you share just a couple of comments? How would you describe your career pre-Uvaro, pre-PlexTrac?
I bounced around quite a bit, to be fair. I started out trying to get into sales of financial investment products very early on. The stress of that was overwhelming. I didn't know what imposter syndrome was at the time, but I definitely had it. But I achieved a lot of licensure in order to sell those products. And so when I decided that sales wasn't going to be for me, I moved into sales support role. And I stayed in that industry for the better part of like 10, 15 years, working in a support role, supporting financial advisors and wealth managers to service their clients, rebalance their assets, produce research and things of that nature. And it was very client service oriented role. And a few times throughout that, I had it up to here and I took a break. And one time I went to Japan and I taught English.
Love it.
And then another time I went to Korea and taught English.
I love the change. In the full transparency, I had those moments too. I went to China and taught English, and yeah, it's the best kind of break. Just a shift of pace.
It was fun.
So I'm thinking about all this. It's a great time. You've spent in your journey. You spent all this time within that financial services industry. You've taken breaks here and there. Jumping into tech is a huge change. What was telling you that it was time to make a shift that was so large?
Well, so, after I had done all that bouncing, I had taken another downshift from my most recent job working in wealth management. And I had gone to work for a state government agency, which was related to both retirement planning and education. So I felt like I was just uniquely qualified for this role because it was a blend of both of my experiences. And I did that for 3 years. And, working for a state agency, there's only ever one solution. And if that solution is laden with defects and just very insecure data, there is just nothing that you can do about it. And we were in the midst of the Great Resignation, and I was losing patience with the organization around me, and I was working with a lot of people who were also losing their patience, and I started shopping online for a new career. I was like, and I'm going to add another thing too. I was very limited in my potential at that state agency job. There was a lot of stress. I was very limited in my potential. I had been passed up for a promotion 3 times consecutively that I had applied for. And I just felt like the next opportunity was way out of sight. So I was shopping online. I was looking for something. And I was on LinkedIn and I saw this article, and you might remember it, but it was like a picture of a man with no face, and he had a hat and a headphone on. And it said, corporations are stammering to try and fill this role, and it's a high paying role, and it doesn't require a whole bunch of education. And I read that article, and it was about SaaS sales. And so I started looking online to SaaS sales, and I found a few different boot camps, and I was like, wow, it's a complete rabbit hole. It was like, once you stumble upon something and you start researching it, and you find there's this whole community out here that exists around this. And that was exactly how I found SaaS in Uvaro.
It's a rich space. And you got into the program, it was like, big spoiler alert, you got into the program, you're doing it. There's so many people who have had a similar journey to yours. So if you can think back to what you were experiencing while you were in the program, can you just share a little bit? What were the first couple of weeks like for you? What were you feeling? What were you experiencing? Just what was that like?
Yeah. I've had quite a few people reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask me for my feedback on Uvaro. And I'll tell you what I tell all of them. The very first week, when you do that about me slide, that is the easiest week you're going to have. and if you can find a way to make that fun and, experiment and find out some new things about yourself that you want to share with this group of people, that will set the tone for the next 8 weeks. And that was where, when we started out, I was trying to write down everything James was saying, and I was trying not to overshare. But when we did that about me slide, I was like, I'm gonna go all out on this, and I'm really gonna try to break some eggs right here. And that was just a shot of adrenaline that after that assignment, I was like, now I gotta live up to this persona that I've created.
It's so good. You get a chance to be someone new, to try uncomfortable things. And I mean, you flourished in that, and it comes across so clearly. I love that you were sharing that. Thank you. Thinking about it, one of the things we often hear from folks, and I'd love to hear if you encountered the same thing. What we often hear from folks is that there's these surprising ways that their past work experience now translates well into the work they're doing. And you've had all this experience with firms like Merrill Lynch and financial services and wealth planning. How, if any, has that translated into your work now at PlexTrac?
In very surprising ways. So, like I said, I stumbled upon SaaS. I knew nothing about cybersecurity. And I accepted this role with PlexTrac because I was very charmed by the company's mission and purpose and their people. And so when I started doing the training and we started talking about these cybersecurity concepts, I feel like it was just, the information wasn't absorbing. I just didn't have any context for it. I couldn't apply it. I couldn't spin it into outreach that would be suitable to speak to experts in the field and approach them and try to sell them a meeting. And I was, really under the gun because I really wanted to become an expert in this product. And I started thinking, like one of the main value props of PlexTrac is around keeping track of remediations. Okay, does that mean anything to you?
I'd be exaggerating if I said yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So it didn't mean anything to me. So it's totally fine. It was completely meaningless to me, but I needed to learn how to make it sound intriguing. So, I started realizing the reason why I am not succeeding at training right now is because they're speaking a foreign language to me. So I went back to my English teaching days and I played this game called Let's Create a List from A to Z. Oh. And I created a list from A to Z of words that I had just recently learned and was trying to become, fluent in that were related to cybersecurity. And I created that list from A to Z. And the first word that came to my mind for every letter, I put it down. And then I decided just to write a little blurb about each word related to security from a learner's perspective. And I didn't worry about it being factual. Factual, yes, I did do some research. But I didn't worry about it sounding technical. I didn't worry about it sounding professional. Like I used humor and I used classroom engagement, and I used things that I would have done as an English teacher in Korea and Japan to get my class in order. And I did a brand building project on LinkedIn with it.
Oh, so good.
I did a brand building project on LinkedIn, and I said, hey, I'm new to cybersecurity and I'm trying to learn how to speak to cybersecurity people. And I want to share this glossary that I've created with you. And every day for 26 days, I shared one of my words. And some days I shared multiple words. And it was truly, kindergarten teacher meets SaaS sales.
You've had this incredible flurry of activity on LinkedIn, and it's been so impressive to watch you engaging, but I didn't realize the origin of that list and that glossary. That, as an outsider, it looked super fascinating and it was super engaging. What was it like for you? Was it helpful? What'd you pick away from it?
Yeah.
Any new insights?
I came away from it with friends and contacts and confidence and a lot more comfort, speaking about PlexTrac and speaking to cybersecurity professionals. And it just completely, it shattered the ice for me.
That's so good. What I love so much about that is we often chat with people who think they need to know all the jargon, all the tools, all the systems. And we always try to reiterate how it's important that you have a desire to learn, and then you can pick up new tools and new knowledge. And you've personified that in every single way. This is just so remarkable. Thank you for sharing those details.
Thanks.
Now, we painted it as like this really rosy picture of like learning and making through it, but I know you had some challenges in your new role. We had a great chat before the interview was being recorded, and you kind of given me the basics, but kind of for our listeners, can you give some of the fundamentals? I know there were some challenges that you had with the team, but what did that look like as you were onboarding with PlexTrac?
Yeah, so I came in with a group of 5 trainees, and we were swimming along through training together, and everyone was amped and encouraged and motivated. And then at the end of our training, there was a little bit of turnover from the existing BDRs on our team. Oh, no. And that just kind of, some of that, understandably, people move on to other opportunities in their life. And that was the story from management, that, people were moving on to other opportunities, but we could not deny that it took some wind out of our sails and, created a little bit of uncertainty and fear that we had to overcome. And we did, all 5 of us are all still there. One of the original BDRs is still with us. And then my 5 are all still there. And then we have hired an additional, I don't want to have a brain meltdown here, but I think it's another 5.
Wow.
It's either 4 or 5. It's a lot. The team has grown. And, I went from in November being part of the incoming class to now, with the exception of one person who was from the original team, now I'm, mentoring the newcomers.
And you mentioned like the titles have changed and everything. You're part of the OG SDR crew now.
Yes.
Like, you got this.
Yeah. So I didn't get to be the freshman class for very long.
You've dripped these little comments so quickly, but profound comments. What I took away from that was, the fact that the company is letting you each uncover your own pace and journey. They're inviting that creativity. These are all great things. But earlier you spoke about an amazing learning opportunity where you saw one individual that maybe could have demonstrated a bit more trust in their journey as they went through it. Do you think you could share just a little bit about what that looked like from your perspective?
Yeah. So we're in this tight-knit team. We're sharing all of our wins. We're sharing all of our losses. If somebody has a bad call, we come to the channel and we share about it. If it transitions from we're sharing as a whole to we're sharing in private, I think some seeds can kind of form there with maybe some blame or maybe some coulda, shoulda, woulda. And I try to steer clear of that. I try to keep my discussions about successes or failures to a tone that is acceptable to say in front of anyone in front of my company. And I have a strict rule around that. If someone comes to me and they want to speak privately about a success or failure in a tone that they wouldn't say in front of everyone, I have a wall there, because, it's my belief that in a sales culture, transparency is the way, and it's the light, it's the way. If something is working well for one person, it should be visible and shareable, and we should be able to replicate it.
I love the wisdom in what you're saying, and I bet there's a ton of sales leaders listening into this podcast, saying, "Oh my goodness, I need more people like Lauren on my team," because the insights that you're sharing there are so true. And I think a lot of teams, especially when they grow as quickly as PlexTrac, don't bake that kind of culture right into it from the get-go. So I'm so glad that you're sharing this, because it's a great example that others can emulate.
Well, and we try. We absolutely try. And I think that, keeping everything central, and if it wasn't in Salesforce, it didn't happen, so you got to own up to those challenges and those responsibilities. And if something doesn't go your way, you have to look first at what you did and what you didn't do. And then, if you feel like, okay, I've assessed all that and I can complain about it, then, at that point, it's maybe okay to go to a manager or a VP and say, okay, here's what I did. Here's the result. And here's what I think, could have been handled differently on the other side had I had done what I was supposed to do. And I've had to do that a few times. Conflict management in a team is something that can be contained and does not have to mutate and spread to others. And I've seen, in my roles at the state agency job and my roles with, teaching English in a foreign country and working in wealth management, I have seen how little tribes can form, and they always lead to someone moving on to other opportunities.
There's some good pithy insights in there, and I can't wait to see what you accomplish next with this, because it sounds like you're thriving, and PlexTrac has done a great job of enabling that. But we focused a lot on your journey, what you've done so far, to kind of really tell your story. I've got a couple of rapid fire questions, if that's okay.
Okay.
Can we shift into those?
Yes.
We know where you've come and where you're at, and it's been a real joy. But I'd love to zoom out, kind of big picture. What's next for you? What are your broader goals? Like, what do you want to do next? If we're chatting with Lauren in a couple of years, where do you see yourself?
I'm an odd breed of BDR, because I was actually talking to a friend of mine about this on Tuesday night at my pickleball league, who's a sales engineer for another cybersecurity company, and he was asking me the same thing. And for the most part, I love the social butterfly aspect of being a BDR, and I love being the kindling and starting up the relationships and starting up the conversations. And I love being able to hand those off. And when I sit in on discovery calls, it's not my favorite place to be. And when I sit in on demos, my least favorite place. And I actually don't want to sit at a negotiating table either.
So if you're not going to be gunning for that AE role in a couple of years, let's zoom in then. The rest of this year, the next couple of quarters. Mm-hmm. Any big goals that we can be helping you out with?
Well, I would love for there to be more of an expediting role, where I'm out there and I'm spotting relationships and I'm matchmaking them with other BDRs. And helping them through those conversations, and maybe being kind of like the Cyrano de Bergerac on those. I I love doing something like that. And just a way to, do more business development from a business development level, but be more productive and do more coaching, but not as a manager. I'm not a people manager,
Got
and I've got a wall around me, and I want to shield out negativity.
So on that, we wouldn't be a sales related podcast if we didn't ask things like, where can people learn more about PlexTrac?
Where can people learn more about PlexTrac?
Yes.
Well, DM me. Tell me, DM me, check out my my hashtag InfoSec literacy series on LinkedIn. All of my lessons that I did all those months ago, they're all hashtagged under InfoSec literacy. Those were basic concepts about cybersecurity that a lot of InfoSec professionals chimed in on, and even my CEO chimed in on a few. Come through my page on LinkedIn and come and link through to PlexTrac, and it's a very niche community. It really only appeals to security practitioners who work in offensive security, which breaks down into penetration testing, red teaming, adversarial emulation, and adversarial simulation. There's also some really thrilling other concepts like bug bounties. Have you ever heard of that before?
I wish I hadn't. I know there's so much.
There's a whole lot of intrigue in the OffSec world. And if you are a practitioner in that arena, PlexTrac is your best friend, because it takes all of your tools and all of your processes and workflows for these engagements, which break down into, multiple phases. And are very disparate and spread out all over the place. It brings all of those into one platform so that you can go through all the phases of an engagement and the life cycle of that process in one place. And then all your data is normalized into one format so that you can automate your reporting process, as well as your analytics and your reporting up to management. That's really PlexTrac in a nutshell. But I say to step lightly and start with learning your ABCs of cybersecurity.
We'll be sure to add the hashtag, your LinkedIn profile, to the show notes, because then people can find you. Lauren, this has been such a delight of a conversation. You've dropped a ton of knowledge, a ton of great wisdom. You've shared your journey, and I couldn't be more grateful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure being here, and I'm totally humble and grateful to everything I learned from Uvaro, because it really did set me up with the right set of expectations, and knowing what I was getting into, and owning the challenge and being ready for it. And Uvaro gave that to me. So thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. I'm looking forward to our next chat. I hope you have a great day.
That's it for this episode of the Seller's Journey podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe for more episodes, connect with us on LinkedIn, and join the movement towards finding career success today.